and welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Klopkin. And, you know, you would never think, but I believe you alluded to that what probably is not going to be the first time. We have a second attempt on Trump's life. Your thoughts, just whatever you want to say on that, obviously. And also, the only thing I ask is could you give your summation of how it's, if at all, going to affect the election. Go ahead, Dr. Lopkins.
Well, I do think it will solidify Trump's base. It has really shown how out of touch certain Democrats have become. And I'm referring primarily to Hillary Clinton and to a lesser extent, Karine Jean Pierre. Because
Oh, God.
after the second assassination attempt, both Biden and Harris called Trump separately. And Trump has said they were very concerned. It was a very congenial call. That's what's supposed to happen. After the assassination attempt, both Hillary Clinton and Karine Jean Pierre doubled down on referring to Trump as a threat to democracy. Really, this is the time. Now, there was a montage of footage starting with Biden's comment after the first assassination attempt on Trump, where he said, "We have to dial down the rhetoric. It is time to stop this." And following that, it was clip after clip of Democrats attacking Donald Trump as a threat to democracy. He has to be stopped by any means necessary. I mean, this language is now completely unacceptable. We
May I
have.
interject one thing on that? Just one
Go
little
ahead.
thing. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. Obviously, it makes all the sense in the world. But I heard a good. It's not a genius Mensa comment, but it's not even political ideologues. It's people that have a little some screw looses, and they want to be a hero. Not just the attention kind of person that's the normal school shooter and all that stuff, but just someone, yeah, I'm going to do something, like a loser like this roofer guy. I'm going to do something for my country. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. We're not talking about sophisticated assassination attempts. We are talking about lone gunmen who are off their rockers. There's clearly something wrong with both of the folks that attempted these assassinations, and the idea that Hillary Clinton and these other Democrats do not accept responsibility for incitement. Now, again, I'm not going full conspiracy theory. I'm not saying the Democrats, were behind the assassination or anything like that. I am saying when you repeat something over and over again and it gets amplified by the media, by social media, then these are people that are disturbed to begin with. They are going to latch onto this.
Yeah, because they want to make. I mean, I'm no psychologist or whatever, but a loser, or whatever, wants to make their mark. Either it's via a school shooting or the Nevada situation. But that's
Or,
happens, all right. But
you
they
know,
no,
or
hold
or
on,
they
but
or they want to impress Jodie Foster.
exactly. But in this case, I think it exponentially ramps up the probability because now you're giving someone a proper avenue. They can be a real hero to people, not just
Yes,
Jodie Foster, but get the accolades of half the nation, so to speak.
and that's the problem. And this has to stop. And to be perfectly honest, I do to a certain extent blame the media
Of course.
and not just the liberal media, because I have been absolutely appalled over the last 2 weeks over the sheer number of fake stories on both sides. that the right wing and the left wing media have been propagating, that there's no facts to it, there's no real investigation to it. Well, guess what? This is one of the consequences of that kind of action. We all need to take responsibility. Stop insulting each other. You can disagree all you want, but there's no reason you can't disagree civilly. And stop making up, ideas that have no basis in fact or truth.
But it gets back to the Dr. Eric E. Lopkin, his, I'd say, best theory on media propaganda, and that is, and it's gotten exponentially worse since you've come up with that. I don't know, 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly. But you're feeding your echo chamber. You're trying to serve your base. You eventually run out of real stories. You got to make some shit up. You got to feed the fire.
That's exactly what has happened. And unfortunately, now we've hit the tipping point. It's no longer, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to another news source because I don't trust them. It's, oh my God, I'm going to try to take out this threat to democracy and be a hero. And
No doubt.
we have seen, not just with these assassination attempts, but in the public at large, a spike in mental illnesses. Now, it started in the mid 2010s or so, but it skyrocketed after COVID. And this is not an administration problem or, oh, COVID wasn't handled properly. This is the fact that people were isolated. People were not taking their meds. People were not seeing a psychiatrist, a therapist. So the problems got worse. And this has skyrocketed. And now we've got social media, the Democrats, the right-wing Republicans, basically all aggravating the situation by trying to fire up their bases.
Okay, but you also have, and this is more of the liberal media, they're some of them have actually blamed Trump, like blaming the messenger,
Yes.
blaming the victim, like blaming the rape victim for being raped. I mean,
Yes.
that's malfeasance. That's a complete and dereliction of duty.
It is. The media's job is to report the news, and they don't do that anymore. And to a certain extent, it goes back to the early days of CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, when they suddenly realized there's not enough going on to fill 24 straight hours of news a day.
True. Yes. But you look at, I think, I'm not a TikTok guy, but I get a lot of my news from alternative media. And it's not because I have an extra guy. It just doesn't do any. I get a lot more insights on going to alternative media. And speaking of that, 40% of young people are getting their information from TikTok.
And that's also a problem because TikTok is not a credible source.
No.
I get my news primarily from primary sources because I was a reporter for so many years. But when I see something in the news, whether it's the New York Times, Fox News, Newsmax, CBS, ABC, whoever else, my first instinct is, let me see if I can verify this. Because I've reached the point that I don't trust the reporting of most of the news outlets. They tend.
Well, that's why their credibility is worse than Congress.
Yes, I mean, very clearly there have been studies that show I'm not alone in this. I mean, there are a couple of places that do really good jobs. You can get some great information from some of the reporters that are on Substack. There is a podcast/publication, The Free Press. They tend to do a very good job. But in general, they get the headline, they get the bare amount of facts to justify their covering the story, and they don't go deeper. And it's when you go deeper that the information really comes out that makes you go, well, wait a minute, there's more to this than that. There's something that they're leaving out.
Yeah, no question about it. Before we um, redouble on the media situation, before we leave that, what is your take in terms of politically on the assassination? Effect, no effect? Your thoughts?
Honestly, I don't think it's going to have much of an effect. I was listening to, oh, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about they were going to different restaurants
Oh, that's
to
ABC News.
see
That's
who.
ABC News. It's ABC News. Yeah, yeah.
It,
As
it,
as I prepared, yeah, it was, and she was shocked that there were no. Everyone was a Trump supporter in these
oh
diners.
no, that also happened to CBS, but no, that's not what
Yeah.
I'm referring to.
Okay.
This person was doing political coverage when the assassination took place,
Okay.
and they had been doing the same thing basically during the first assassination. And when he asked people about the first assassination, people were outraged. Didn't matter which side you were on, people were outraged. After the second one, people started taking this as, oh, it's business as usual. We've gotten so blasé over the violence and the bias and the division that we've started to say, oh, another assassination attempt.
I would agree with that to some degree. I do think, however, getting back to my CBS um, point, is that that is a liberal media outlet, and the reporter was aghast by the lack of enthusiasm on Harris's side and the real enthusiasm on the Trump side. What's my point? My point is I see this as just slightly, not like the first one, further energizing his base, not to a crazy amount, a little bit, but it's a tight election, could have a minor impact. Um, but
Possibly.
speak possibly.
I don't know that it's actually necessary to energize his base anymore. I mean, the energy difference between Harris supporters and Trump supporters is amazing. Harris supporters are like, yeah, I guess I'll support her, but Trump supporters are going all out. So, I mean, there is a big enthusiasm gap, and we've seen that in the polls.
Yeah, no question. I actually contend that it's not reflected as much as it should in the polls because there's no way of measuring it. So I think there could be some surprises a la 2016, but we'll see how that goes. Speaking of surprising surprises, we have good old Richard Blumenthal. He actually chastised the administration, calling it a dereliction of duty for not responding to his request on the assassinations.
Yeah, Richard Blumenthal is chairman of the committee that is investigating these assassination attempts. And he actually accused the Biden Harris administration and the DHS in specific of stonewalling the investigation. Now, I mean, Blumenthal has been a political hack for years. The fact that he is coming out against his own party and calling them to task is absolutely amazing. And it begs the question, how bad is this that he has gotten this angry about it?
That's a good question. However, you mentioned this months ago, the Supreme Court Meyer, uh, that she has diabetes, and he was wanted, was suggesting she leave now. So, and
Right.
you thought that you theorized that possibly that could be a sign that he thought the bad things were on the horizon towards the election. I'm just throwing out there that even in Connecticut, he's not unbelievably, his likability is not unbelievably off the charts for a blue state, and maybe he senses because he is a political hack that he needs to be at least the appearance of being a little more even keeled.
And that is
Possible.
possible. I don't know that. he would be thinking about too much politically in terms of Connecticut because he doesn't come up for reelection for another 4 years, I believe.
Yeah,
But
true.
I think he does kind of see the writing on the wall that the party has gone too far to the left. And I mean, I've never been a fan of Blumenthal, but for all of his faults, he has always thought he was doing what was best for his constituents, and he's never been a radical liberal. He's much more centrist than most Democrats are at this point. So I think that
That's
he
saying
may be
something.
responding to that, where this is something that, yes, everybody needs to come together. This should not be a partisan issue. And I think he's stepping out on that platform, essentially saying there are certain things that are above party, and this has to be one of them.
I agree. It just shows you how incompetent this administration is. And I believe I can group this into the category of incompetency. We have Bill Ackerman. He's certainly not incompetent. Billionaire, once a Harvard grad, I believe, too. Yeah, Harvard grad, billionaire, big, was previously a big Democratic fundraiser. He actually came out and suggested or implied that ABC gave Harris the sample of the questions, and there's talk in the media, in the press, that there is a whistleblower that I believe has a affidavit or a signed affidavit saying that they have video of this happening. Your thoughts? And if it
Yeah,
does, if it is true, you could say goodbye ABC, and I think the ramifications on the election would be mind numbing.
yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, I can pretty much say yes, it is true. Uh,
Oh
the re-
wow.
the reports that have come out were that ABC News decided they were going to essentially rig the debate. First of all, they spoke to, I don't know if they spoke to Kamala Harris herself or just her people, but the agreement that they allegedly had with her was that they would not fact check her, that they would absolutely they would fact check Trump only, and they gave her sample questions that substantially were the exact same questions that were asked during the debate. Now, it has come out there was a an LA Times piece. This was a puff piece on Lindsay Davis. Well, as it
Hmm.
turns out, Lindsay Davis actually said in this interview that the decision was made that they had to help Harris because they were appalled that CNN did not help Biden out of that disastrous debate with Trump. So
But
they
they're the
had,
party of democracy. How could that happen?
yeah. There's also one of the heads
Wait,
of,
wait, before you go on, though, will this see the light of day?
oh, it's already starting to see the light of day. I've seen coverage of this in a number of places.
Okay, but
Mark,
real media. I'm talking like mainstream media
I'm trying,
to the masses.
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It's Mark something, and I'm blanking on his last name. He was a former advisor to Hillary Clinton. He has called for an internal investigation at ABC to find out what has happened. So you've got Democrats at this point calling ABC out for doing this. We also found
Okay,
out,
so if it gets more traction, what's the impact on the election?
I don't think it's going. Well, I think first of all, again, it's energized Trump's base. We
They could have
basically
done a better
saw,
job. They could have done a better job of faking it. It was unbelievable.
yeah, we basically saw the results of the debate, where it convinced diehard Harris supporters to continue to back her. it convinced Trump supporters to continue to back Trump. There is a small minority of independents that were convinced by the debate to vote for Trump,
Trump, yes.
according to the after debate polls, and even the reactions of viewers during the debate. Most independents and undecided left the debate still independent and still undecided. So it did
But
not.
what if this does get? What if it does get more traction? I'm sorry, I kind of disagree on that. Is it going to be the bombshell? But it's a very close election. I think it's going to. I think it will have ramifications. It's
I don't.
already having ramifications on ABC. Their ad revenue's down, and so are their ratings.
Yeah,
It's going to happen to a nicer people.
ABC is going to be the big loser in all of this. The reason I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal for the election is because I don't think the facts are going to come out before November.
I think you're right. It'll be like a laptop deja vu.
I think
Laptop 2.0.
I think all of this stuff will start hitting December, January, after it's too late for anybody to do anything about it.
I would absolutely agree with that. But you had an ABC News interview in Philadelphia that basically proved the theory or the accusation. She was asked some specific questions. Yikes. I don't know if you saw a clip of it and if our
Yeah,
listeners saw a clip of it, but it was like yikes, yikes, yikes.
I've
incompetent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've seen the interview that she gave with the Philadelphia ABC affiliate. I've also seen parts of the interview she gave to the National Association of Black Journalists. And
Puffball question.
if it's more than just puffball questions, because in the ABC affiliate, they actually asked her some very pointed questions.
Oh no, that was a good interview.
The problem was she didn't answer them, and the reporter didn't follow up. And in fact, if you watch Harris's debate, the ABC affiliate interview, and the interview with the National Association of Black Journalists, what you see is her repeating prepared answers over and over again. And these answers don't answer the question. She talks about she grew up as a middle class
which is
family.
A lie. It's a lie.
And
She was upper middle class. Her father, both parents were professors. Grew up, I guess, started her life in I think they were teaching at McGill in a very affluent neighborhood in Canada, then moved to Stanford. I don't think that's like kind of, that's a hand to mouth living. We'll just leave it at that.
No, she never had to deal with anything like that. But her answers are basically written by her staff as this is what she's capable of memorizing. Just keep saying these.
100% agree. But looking at the polls, I find this very interesting. It's about no post debate Taylor Swift endorsement bump. We have Atlas, which is a highly accurate poll. In fact, the last election, the most accurate, gives now Trump a 70% of winning the election and has him nationally +3. Another poll came out. I don't recall exactly who the pollster was. Gave him a slight lead in the swing states. I've also seen some information that her internal polling, which is actually, they say, sometimes more accurate than national public polls, paints a a somewhat darker gray picture for her. And then you have Nate Silver, gives her a 58 point something, 59% essentially, chance of winning the popular vote, but gives Trump a reverse 59%, same percentage of winning the election. Your thoughts on those polls?
Yeah, we've actually had a number of Democratic pollsters come out, and I think we mentioned this a week or two ago, that they said the polls are not good for Harris. It does not look like she is going to be able to carry the Electoral College. Now, that being said, one, it's still very close.
Of
So
course.
it really is a toss up. But something that in my research I came across that I find very interesting and a little frightening, quite frankly. If you look at polling going back to 2008 to 2012, the reported margin of error was 2 to 3%. If you look at today's polls, some of these polls are predicting a margin of error as large as 6%. That's
Hmm. Well,
basically,
can I interject one thing
yeah.
on that? I believe the margin of error goes in Trump's favor, and you've said that as well, not in those words, Dr. Lopkin, because they're the ones not answering the phone. Blah 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 blah. Correct?
Yes, we have seen since, certainly since 2016 and probably earlier, that when pollsters make their calls, the people least likely to answer the phone are Republicans, to a greater extent, conservative Republicans, and certainly after 2016, Trump supporters do not answer these polls very often. So, yes, that
No.
greater margin of error does tend to swing towards Trump's favor. But it also tells me that the pollsters are not doing a good job keeping up with changing times and changing technology and changing opinions. And maybe we really have to be questioning how accurate any of these are.
I cannot argue with that. Again, another great insight from Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. Yes, I think there has to be a complete reboot of the polling technology slash process. I would agree with that. But however, even as flawed as they are, I contend, in my humble opinion, that time is not on Harris's. Her favorability is declining. Trump's is inversely on the up.
Yeah,
Dramatic,
people.
but no. I think just I think there's a Hillary factor. I think the more you see Harris, the more you dislike, which goes against normal human emotional cognition.
Yeah, in general, she actually does have a lot in common with Hillary Clinton
Yes, she
in
does.
that regard. The fact of the matter is, her staff tried to keep her away from doing interviews, from being, kept tried to keep her out of the public eye because they really did feel that that was her best tactic. It kind of backfired because even the media started questioning, well, why are you hiding? So now she's doing local interviews. She still hasn't committed to any national interview.
Will never happen.
She's doing some podcasts.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
doing
Whoa, 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 whoa.
she's
The
not doing
podcasts are
Carnivore
like,
Radio.
well, no, the podcasts are like. She did one from a Gen X. I mean, they're not exactly Rogan. We'll just leave it at that.
No, she's doing these smaller podcasts, and essentially she's doing interviews with people who aren't going to question her answers. She's
Mm-mm.
not doing anything with major reporters, or she's certainly not going into any opposition,
No way.
media like Trump is doing. She's desperately trying to keep it down. And in fact, I think at last count, there were approximately 140 social media influencers that the Harris campaign tried to buy to get their endorsements. And they have come out and said not only would they not endorse her no matter how much they paid, they actually are supporting Trump because Harris tried to buy their support.
Yes, I think it all relates to her internal polling. That's the only reason she's doing any kind of media, and we'll see how this all plays out. I do think one of her biggest mistakes, and I think it was Fancy Nancy that was the big proponent, was having Waltz instead of Shapiro. we might not be talking about the same polls if they went with Shapiro. There's obvious reasons why they didn't go with Shapiro, but Waltz's wife probably she might want to be hospital. I saw her in a couple of rallies. First of all, it shows you what the liberals really think of their constituency. It was like talking to like a second grader. Burn the page. I mean, this chick is out of her mind.
Well,
Opens her window during the riot. She's mashugana. She's nuts.
I have to be perfectly honest about that rally video where she did the turn the page. Because when I first saw it, I did not realize that it was Tim Waltz's wife. I actually thought that he was campaigning with Hillary Clinton.
Hmm.
And until when I took a closer look at it, it's like, oh, wait a minute, who is, but the it was almost as though she was trying to ape Hillary Clinton, like Hillary's campaign was so spectacular. I mean, let's not forget she lost.
Yes, and I also think because it is so close, I believe that the half points everything in this election. The upcoming vice presidential debate will be an electrocution. Guy Waltz is not intelligent anyway. He has a background that it's a target rich environment. Your thoughts? A moron.
Yeah, I have absolutely no doubt that Vance is going to decimate Waltz in the debate. I don't know if it's going to have much of an effect.
No, not a huge, a little bit.
Vice presidential debates never really do. In fact, the only vice presidential debate I can think of in modern history
Whale.
that actually had any impact and it still couldn't carry the election was when Benson decimated Dan Quayle.
I'm not arguing with you. 100% agree. But I think in an extremely close election, half a point, there's something to be said for
Yeah,
that.
I mean this election comes down to I keep flashing. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Any Given Sunday.
Yes.
Okay, think about Al Pacino's speech in the locker room. Life is a game of inches. A few inches too far, you don't quite make it. A few inches too close, you miss the catch. That is what this election is. It's a game of inches, and every inch is going to matter.
That's my point, and we
Yep.
agree on that 100%. And something that really does matter is we have Uncle Joe completely blown out of his mind, and yet we have the world stage that is more dangerous than ever. Not a good combination, and you don't even have a competent. You have a Valley Girl as the vice president. Not a great combination.
No, it's not a great combination. Um, I mean, certainly since the debate, Biden has been AWOL to say the least.
And
I
it's also we think now that he's not a real or not a candidate, I don't think they give a shit. I think they just put him out there. There's no real handlers, or there's somebody. There's no Uber mentoring or guiding him. So he's going to the some I think some Black Caucus or whatever in Nevada or Atlanta. I forgot where it was. I mean, he goes on stage. He tried to kiss one of the MCs, and she basically was like, "No." And you listen to some of those speeches. They're like, "Yikes! This guy is blown out,
Yeah,
blown out."
there was a great political cartoon a few days ago. I don't recall which cartoonist, but it was a picture of Joe Biden in the airplane door, and on the tarmac is Kamala Harris and and her advisors, and the advisor is saying, and Biden is wearing a "Make America Great Again" cap. And the advisor is saying, I don't think we should be sending him out for you anymore.
Oh yeah, I thought that was a classic. I agree, but the combination, what does scare me? Forget about Biden, but God forbid, Harris wins. There's the 2 o'clock in the morning call about a potential nuclear strike. If that doesn't scare the shit out of everyone, I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah, and at this point, that is something that people actually should be concerned
but
about.
they're not.
I mean, when Hillary and Trump were running in 2016, and Hillary Clinton ran the ad about getting the call at 2 in the morning. Who do you want picking up the phone? I mean, obviously, the people decided they didn't want Hillary picking up the phone. But in the past 8 years, things have gotten exponentially worse.
Exponentially, yes.
A report just came out from the Commission on the National Defense Strategy. Now, this is a bipartisan report. And in summary, what the report found was that we are actually closer to a global conflict than we have been at any time since 1945. And worse than that, not only is the US military not strong enough to prevent a conflict from happening, nor is the government respected enough to prevent a conflict from happening. The commission found that we can't even guarantee a good chance of victory at this point if the conflict does happen.
I disagree. We would have a total victory because we would come out, we would lose the battle, but we would have the most woke, most energy efficient, and most carbon neutral offensive in the history of modern warfare.
Yes, and as they lead us into concentration camps, that is of great consequence.
Exactly. Speaking of people that actually there is a lot of hmm, second guessing about the Israeli defense uh, apparatus, Assad, but they just pulled off back to back. I don't know what to call back to back. I don't know what to call it. You tell me. That is some that if it was in a movie, you might walk out and say that's just ridiculous. A walkie-talkie slash pager. I feel like that for like a Mission Impossible title on the old show, the pager event.
Yes, this was quite possibly the finest moment any intelligence agency
Not
has
even close.
ever had. And this was an operation from Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, where they were actually able to intercept a shipment of pagers. Hezbollah had decided they did not want to use cell phones because they were concerned that Mossad would be able to intercept the phone calls too easily and listen in. So they went to pagers, and Mossad was able to intercept the shipment of pagers, insert explosive devices in them, and then have them go onto to their final
Lebanon.
destination. Right, in Lebanon. Yesterday, they sent out the signal to detonate those explosives. And nine Hezbollah actors were killed. Almost 3,000 were injured,
Severely injured.
including the Iranian ambassador.
Oh well. And then today or yesterday, whatever it is, they did another one. Then they went to walkie talkies and they did the same thing.
Well, there's still some question about that. There were a lot of reports of more explosions today. Most of those reports have been dismissed already that they didn't happen. So
Okay.
I don't know what's happening if the walkie-talkies actually exploded or if they're included in these debunked reports. But the point of it is either way, Hezbollah's communications has been severely compromised. This
Well,
was
put it
a
this way:
major blow.
If I'm in Lebanon and the Hezbollah guy says phone call for you, Mr. Sherman, I'm probably going to decide, yeah, maybe I'm not going to pick that
Take a
one up.
message. Yes. Do
There
me a
you go.
favor, take a message. Yes.
Yeah,
My
get
my
back to me.
my first thought this morning after first after finding out that Hezbollah was using pagers, But after yesterday, when the pagers exploded, this morning I got up. My wife had already been watching the news, and I asked, "So, did anybody explode any fax machines today?"
I like that. Well, there used to be an AT&T ad that said "reach out and touch someone." I think
Yep.
that takes it to a new level. And speaking of a new level, P Diddy makes Epstein and who knows who look like child's play. Depravity of the highest order. He is going away forever.
And
No bail, no
there,
bond.
well, there's a
Goodbye.
good
Well deserved, by
possibility
the
that if he is found guilty, he will go away for life.
forever.
I was actually amazed that they denied bail completely. I expected them to give him a high bail, but the fact that they said, no, we're not even letting you out, that was amazing. And I haven't seen all of the indictment yet that was responsible for this. But I personally, given who P. Diddy has been working with over years and how integrated he is in the entertainment industry and to a
And the
less
Democratic Party,
right and the Democratic Party,
just like Epstein.
I actually think the first thing that Sean Puffy Combs should do is release a statement saying, I am fighting this in court, and I am not suicidal. I am not going to kill myself.
I think you are 100% right. I mean, usually pedophiles and creeps like that are on the lowest of the food chain in prison. And so that's one thing he has to watch out for. And I think the other is the midnight noose that Epstein got because, yeah, if you look at all the what happened with Epstein, yeah, I got a bridge to sell you. So yes, I agree with that, Dr. Lopkin. He should explicitly say that he is not suicidal. Well, Dr. Lopkin, another great show. Our
Another
listeners,
great show. And before we wrap up, there is one other thing that came in we should cover. The Fed did come out with its first interest rate drop since 2020 and actually dropped interest rates a half a point, which was more than some people expected. The stock market indices rallied on the news but have since pulled back. So that's some
because
important.
of Dr. Lopkin. No, you said it last week. Because, yeah, there was a little sugar high on the uptick, I'm assuming. But also, they're thinking, ooh, too late, recession.
There's a lot of talk that it might have been too little too late. And the fact that they did drop it half a point is adding fuel to that conversation, because if the Fed didn't feel that they were too late, they would have only dropped it a quarter of a point.
Well said once again. And then I will now reiterate. Great show as always, Dr. Lopkin, spot on. And our listeners can help with our content and contribute to our podcast, correct?
Yes, they can. They can go to exvadio.com/connect. That's exvadio.com/connect. You can also message us at the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. We want to hear what your thoughts are. Let us know your opinion and tell us what issues concern you. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at exvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
I thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.